Hi, my name's Gabriella, welcome to my channel. For the past 2 years, I've gotten into a bit of a tradition of sort of making my Halloween costumes. Last year, I did a little video on how I made my Wednesday Addams costume, and it wasn't made from scratch. I basically just found a black dress and stitched on a collar for the night and, you know, did my hair, and that was about it. It was more of a Wednesday Addams themed outfit. But this year, I took it not really one step further, but a lot of steps further, and I made my costume from scratch. Now, the sensible thing would have been to film the process as I did it, but I was working on a really tight deadline and I just forgot, didn't really have the time. It was just too stressful to think about that as well. So I didn't, but I still wanted to make a video on it because hopefully it's something that I will continue to do. Like, that was the first item of clothing that I ever completely made from scratch myself, and you know, I quite enjoyed it. I think I'd like to do more of it and maybe make some more costumes. I've got some ideas, we'll see what happens. Hopefully in the future I will actually film the process and then I can do proper tutorials, but I thought it might just be interesting to walk through how I made the costume from scratch. So the costume itself was Katara from the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. For anyone who's wondering, it's not the one where they're all blue aliens, it's the other one. If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a picture, hopefully. So the materials I used, I went out and I bought, I think it was 3 meters of light blue fabric, this colour. It's not the exact colour of her costume, but they didn't have it, so I went slightly lighter. I bought some white cotton, I bought some white fur, I got some navy ribbon and little necklace fastenings. I also got some navy dye, as well as, you probably can't see it, but there's some Velcro on here. I also bought white thread for the sewing machine, light blue thread, and navy thread. And that was everything that I used, I think. So first of all, I started with this light blue. I folded it in half lengthways so that I had 2 sections of 1.5 meters each. Then I got a large t-shirt out. I drew around the outline of the t-shirt and then drew out diagonally from it to create the skirt. I tacked along the lines I'd drawn around the t-shirt and tried it on just like that, just to see how it fitted. I needed to make some adjustments, so I made the sleeves a bit wider, redrew that, retacked that, tried it on again, made sure it was right. Then I cut round the lines, leaving about 1 inch or 2. Then trying that on, I was then able to see more precisely how the fit was. Luckily the fit was fine, so I stitched with the sewing machine just along the sides to hold it completely in place. I tried it on again. I did a few more alterations around the sleeves, and then once I had made the alterations so that it was the right size, I stitched along the shoulders and under the sleeves. To sort the neckline out, I put it on, drew a point roughly on my chest where I wanted it to come down to, and took it off again, kind of drew round where I thought that was, tacked it in place, tried it on again just to make sure, and then I hemmed it, and I hemmed the entire way around the collar in one go. Then I went round and hemmed the sleeves, and then finally I moved on to the skirt at the bottom. I had the top bit ready, so I just put it on again, figured out roughly where I wanted the skirt to go down to, how wide I wanted it to go, and pinned it in place. From there I then tacked it in place, tried it on again, and then just sewed the hem along the edge. I cut off all the excess. Before I did the skirt, I flipped it over and turned everything the right way around again, because before everything had been inside out. Probably a point I should have made earlier. While I was doing all the sewing before, everything was inside out. But yeah, so I had sewed everything together. I had the blue dress. Then I needed to add all the detail on. So I started with the white collar that goes down, to the side. I cut a strip of fabric that was long enough, folded it several times so that it became thicker and you wouldn't see through it, and then I pinned it in place around the top, tacked it in place, and then started sewing around it. Started on the inside, so the bit at the top went round, all the way around, kept going round, and then down to where it joined. I didn't then sew all the way down because I needed to sort out where the belt was going to go. So I got the belt, it was another piece of white fabric, folded in half again, I think twice. I went round, hemmed all the edges, and cut it to my length. So I basically just measured it around my waist and saw like kind of exactly how long it needed to be. Then I was able to put it round my waist and figure out exactly where I wanted it. So I pinned where I wanted it to go. So then I moved the collar that goes down and pinned it so that it went exactly underneath where I wanted the belt to join. Then I could finally sew on the rest of it. Then to finish the belt, I put Velcro on. I put the fuzzy bit on the top of the side that was going to attach to the dress, and the sticky bit on the bottom of the side that was gonna go round and rejoin. Then I quite simply just sewed it on. I had to get most of the dress under the sewing machine for that. It was a bit of a hassle, but I attached it like this here, and then I could take it round, and it was measured to me, so I could just then stick it on like that, and it held in place. It was great. Then I tackled the fur at the bottom. This was a bit of a hassle. I cut it to size, and you actually need double the amount you think you're going to. You don't just need the amount that it's going to go down the skirt, you need the same amount again so that it covers the back of the skirt. I then folded it in half, folded over all the corners for hemming, and pinned it onto the bottom of the skirt with half on each side. Then you have to be really careful when you're sewing, but just to make sure that the dress is underneath the edges that you're sewing. It's a bit of a struggle, and you need to do this for both sides. So, but yeah, just sew down, all the way down, and then up again, and it just folds in place like that. You can see on this side where I messed it up a little bit and had to just sew some of the skirt a bit further out. I just had to pull it and sew it like that so that it went out to the edge, because there was just a massive chunk of white stuck out and it looked ridiculous. So yeah, that was a bit of a struggle, but finally I did it, and that is the dress done. I had thought about taking it in a little bit, just, you know, pulling in bits along the top, but because it did look a little bit like a sack of potatoes when I just had the blue. But when you put the collar on and then you do the belt as well, the belt pulls everything in and it actually looks okay. So then I moved to the wristbands, and I basically got my white fabric, folded it over a few times, made it the right, well, I just used strips that were as long as the collar, because that was the length of the material that I had got. Can't remember exactly, I think it was maybe a metre, maybe just over a metre. And then I just hemmed the whole way around, and I put it in a big pot of dye. The dye needed a lot of salt, and I did not have that much salt in the house, so I had to do an emergency shopping trip, go get some more salt. Actually, I think I put the Velcro on before I did that, but I don't think it matters which way you do it. If you've got the navy thread, you can then sew the Velcro on afterwards. I sort of broke the sewing machine. It's a very old sewing machine that I was using, like one of the really old Singer ones. I don't know if anyone knows them, but like really old vintage, as in it was my great-grandmother's back in like the 20s, 30s. So very old sewing machine, and it had a motor, and I think I may have overkilled the motor a little bit. Sorry, Granny. But basically I started at one end, put fuzzy bit on the top, went round, did it to my length, put the sticky bit on the bottom, and then kept wrapping it round. Yeah, put the sticky bit on the bottom, and wherever that went along to, I just put a bit of the fuzzy stuff on there. and that was how I did the armbands. If I had to do it again, I would probably try find something else. The material itself just moved quite a lot. It would get quite big, bunch up, or like go completely down. It wasn't great, but at short notice it was easy to make and it did its job. So then finally I went on to the necklace. I basically just cut a piece of navy ribbon to the length of around my neck. At each end I bunched the ends up, used the navy thread to sew on the fastenings, and then I had a second fastening left over, so I just slid that on and I made the charm very low budget. I didn't have time to think about making anything more detailed, but I basically cut out a circle of cardboard, covered it in tin foil, used blue permanent marker to kind of smudge it a bit of a darker, well, a bit off blue colour, and then drew on the detail with the blue permanent marker. As you can see, it's permanent marker. It does smudge off eventually, but it does if you leave it to dry for a few minutes, it does the job well enough for just one night or one day or something, however long you need it for, and you can always top it up if you need. But it was just a quick, simple way of doing it. That was everything that I made. Obviously the costume needed some navy leggings. They are meant to be sort of almost like tracksuit bottoms. I didn't have time to make them, so I just found some like £3 navy leggings. And then finally for the boots, I had this really old pair of brown buckle boots. They're so old, the store's rubbed off the bottom. I have no idea where they're from, but yeah, just some old like fake leather boots. And that's the costume. I haven't properly figured out the hair. I didn't get any like little accessories, like I think she has some little blue things here, and I haven't got it properly sorted out, but how I did it for my Halloween party was I grabbed 2 little bits of hair from roughly here, just kind of like the corners of your forehead, plaited it, held that out the way, got sort of the very crown of my head, like enough that I could make a small bun out of, but enough that the majority of my hair was still left below. I pulled that into a low ponytail, tied it, plaited it, and then spun it round into a bun. I then grabbed the 2 plaits I had made earlier, pinned them into the bun, and then the remaining hair I just plaited down the side. It looked okay, it held up. There were a lot of pins in my head because I don't have a net for buns or anything, but it held. It can be a bit fiddly, but yeah, it's just a lot of plaits really. It just kind of did natural makeup, a bit of sparkle around the eye or something. I don't know, I'm not a makeup person really. I hope that was interesting for people to see how I made it, and if you haven't really made costumes before and were thinking about it but just thought this is too difficult, well, I did it, and I'd never made anything before, so hopefully you've seen that it actually isn't as complicated as it seems. It definitely takes time. Like, it did take me the best part of 3 days, like every moment when I wasn't working, but you know, it was a fun project, and so hopefully you've been inspired to do it. And if you're someone who makes costumes a lot, please give me help. Like if anyone has any suggestions for how I could have done it better, or improvements I could have made, I would love to hear them, because I'm probably gonna remake it at some point in the future. Although saying that, I've wanted to make this costume for about 7 years now. It's taken me 7 years to do it, so it might be a while before I remake it. Any advice is welcome. I'm hopefully going to make other costumes, even if I don't get around to remaking this one for a while. So hopefully I can take on tips for other things and share for other people who are looking at this video and maybe need some tips. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like or subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll be making more stuff like this soon. Till next time, bye!